Okay, first things first, you are still watching Allons-Y. This is definitely the video that you pressed on, okay? Don't go anywhere. I know it's very different, you can see my face and not a wobbling Sukuna picture, but I'm basically doing this to just get chapter reviews out early because it takes way too long to edit normal videos and also write them out. I'm going off script and I'm just going to be showing my face instead of any like clips and all that kind of stuff. I'll show the odd panel here and then, and I can also like do this kind of. Yeah, it's an easier way for me to do chapter reviews, and it's just going to be like this only for leaks. That's the only reason I'm going to do this for videos. Every other video is going to be completely normal, okay? Nice, so now that I've got that out of the way, chapter 266 of Jujutsu Kaisen randomly dropped last night after being delayed for a night, and it's so strange because some really cool stuff happened and there's some really cool setup, but nothing actually happened, if that makes sense. Before we jump straight into the chapter review though, as always, please go and like and subscribe and comment and tell me I'm shit, I don't know. Anyway, intro over, my waffle is complete, let's just get straight into the review. So chapter 266 begins with Yuji and Megumi's souls having a nice little chat, and it's basically just Megumi saying what he wanted for his life and what his dream for life was, and obviously we know now that he's never really gonna get that because it was all focused around him making a better world for Sumiki to live in. And of course, Sukuna took it upon himself to go and put Sumiki 6 feet under. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of trauma for Megumi there, which explains why he kind of outright refused to get any help last time, and you know, then we all got into the situation we are in now because Megumi just wasn't really feeling up to it. Now what's kind of happening is Yuji uses domain on Sukuna, and they have this sort of chance to connect, I don't know, via the soul communication weird thing. They seem to be talking right now, and Megumi still seems hella depressed. He's just taking Yuji through what he wished life could have been like and why he doesn't think life can be like that anymore simply because Sumiki is gone. And it parallels quite nicely with, you know, Yuji's mentality of being a cog and living for the purpose of achieving a goal, and if you can no longer achieve that goal, or if the people you're trying to achieve it for don't exist anymore, then there's no point to you living either, which Yuji has recently realized there is a point to living for just the point of living, which is hopefully something Megumi comes to understand. But after this chapter, I'm not gonna lie, it's not looking good. If you're a Megumi fan like me and you're ready for the strong-ass Maharaga Divine Dog totality comeback with the awakened open domain, it's not looking great, I'm not gonna lie. But anyway, yeah, we get that nice little conversation between Yuji and Megumi, and then we see in Yuji's domain, both Yuji and Sukuna have gone back to looking how they were before they went in the domain. So Sukuna's in his normal forearm form and Yuji's got all his scars and gauntlets. It never really explained why they go back to looking normal. I'm not really sure. I guess it's not that big of a deal, but I do kind of want to know these things. We also still don't know what the name of Yuji's domain is, and we don't know what the sure hit is, but Sukuna seems worried enough about it because he uses Hollow Wicker Basket, which he can now do because he healed his forearms back. And speaking of healing the forearms, I'm kind of upset that he's done that. I'm not gonna lie, like his RCT is back, he's got his full form back, his curse technique will, you know, recover soon, and it just makes me think, like, what was the point in the whole last bit of the fight? Like, everything post Gojo, I don't really see what the point to that was now. The only things at all that had any lasting impacts probably was Yuji's like soul punches and Yuta's Jacob's ladder. That is probably the only two things that actually had any impact, because he can't really heal the connection between him and Megumi with RCT. He needs like the bath, and he needs to probably submerge Megumi's soul. So anything that loosened his soul, like Yuta's Jacob's ladder, and definitely not Hana's Jacob's ladder. I mean, we can all agree that thing was just hot ass. But yeah, things like the soul punches and Jacob's ladder are the only thing that had a lasting effect. Like the whole Yuta Gojo routine, all for nothing. You know, Todo showing up and beating the crap out of Sukuna with Yuji didn't really do much. Anything Maki didn't really do much. Kusakabe, no. LaRue, no. McGill, no. Kashimo, okay, Kashimo never did anything in the first place, but, you know, Higuruma, no. Just everything just becomes irrelevant, which is kind of upsetting. I don't want to rant on about it for too long. Maybe I'll make another video just hating on Sukuna, but it's fine. For now, the point is he's got his forearms back and he's using Hollow Wicker Basket, which is a good sign because it does mean that he at least thinks Yuji's domain is a bit of a threat. And on the plus side, we do actually get a explanation of Hollow Wicker Basket and why he needs forearms to do it properly. So basically, Simple Domain and Hollow Wicker Basket doesn't have the right output, like it doesn't have high enough output to compete with a normal domain. So by having the forearms, Sukuna can constantly do the chant and hand sign and then compensate for the output and survive in an actual domain expansion using Hollow Wicker Basket or Simple Domain, but in his case it's Hollow Wicker Basket because he's an old man, and then he can survive it for a long time. Whereas a sorcerer who doesn't have forearms would do the sign, and they could hold the sign and not fight, and that would let them survive, or they could, in theory, they could do it without the sign, and it would be a lot weaker and eventually overcome. And that's kind of a good thing, because it means both Yuta and Yuji's domain are scary enough for Sukuna to need to hold that hand sign in place in order to have a high output Hollow Wicker Basket. But yeah, Sukuna uses Hollow Wicker Basket, and then Yuji and Sukuna start throwing hands. And I have to admit, this fight kind of it very nicely parallels Yuji's fight with the Grasshopper Curse back in Shibuya. The way that he was like throwing hands with this four-armed creature and yet still managing to like keep pace is pretty damn cool. They do seem pretty even in that fist fight there, which Sukuna probably isn't enjoying as much, but it is what it is. Yuji is just a complete beast when it comes to hand. Like, there are very few characters that come close to his skill. And yeah, so that's just a kind of cool fight that happens. They just throw some hands and punches and not much else. But then eventually we get to a Megumi flashback, which is literally like panel for panel. It's the exact same as when Teen Gojo goes to find Kid Megumi for the first time. It's exactly the same, except this time when Megumi turns around, he sees Yuji instead of Gojo. And you know, it's, again, a lot of people like to draw parallels between Yuji and Megumi and Gojo and Geto. I do think this conversation kind of mirrors that slightly, but it's very sad what they talk about. Megumi basically just questions why Yuji looks sad, and Yuji basically says that he can't tell Megumi to live. And what I feel like that means is Yuji's being in this state of depression before. Like, he knows how Megumi feels. We've seen it in Shibuya multiple times after Nanami and Nobara's death, and what it took was Todo to get him back on his feet. Without Todo, he was just in a state of constant depression because of Mahito and Sukuna. And so he understands very well how Megumi's feeling right now, and he can't bring himself to tell him to live. Like, he can't order him to live. He can't do it, which a lot of people won't like, I think, but it does make sense. It's a realistic outlook on the situation. Megumi's, you know, in a very bad mental state, which is very understandable, and Yuji understands what that's like, okay? He gets it, and there's no Todo around to tell Megumi to get off his ass. So it's really, you know, this doesn't necessarily mean that Megumi is done. It doesn't mean he's gonna die. It doesn't mean it's over. It means he has to do it for himself. He needs to be the one to decide not to be a cog. He needs to be the one to decide that it's worth living for the things he has and for the things he can have in the future that he doesn't necessarily see now because he's kind of clouded by this thought of losing Sumiki, which is fair enough, but it really does all come down to Megumi deciding to live for himself, which I do think we're probably gonna get, but I'm not sure. I really don't know at this point. A very positive sign, however, is that when we cut back to the fight, Sukuna's leg actually falls halfway into Megumi's shadow, meaning that Megumi is fighting back. He is actually using his 10 Shadows technique to fight back against Sukuna in Yuji's domain. And Yuji notices as well, obviously, because how would you not see when someone just falls into a black pool of mush? But yeah, he notices, and then he smiles to himself, which is just so funny. I don't know why. I really like that, just him going, yeah, you're kind of fucked now, Sukuna, I'm not gonna lie. And then runs straight in and starts battering Sukuna again. And then Sukuna explains to us that he hasn't got access to the 10 Shadows technique anymore, which a lot of people had already figured out because he hadn't used it in such a long time. He says since Maharaga was destroyed, the 10 Shadows technique hasn't really been working, and I don't understand why one Shikigami, unless Maharaga was the one that were kind of holding them all together, I don't understand how losing one Shikigami suddenly made the whole technique not work. And also, I want to know why Totality doesn't play into it for Maharaga, because I'm convinced he can still come back in Divine Dog Totality form. But yeah, basically Sukuna can't use it, but Yuji can, which again doesn't really make sense, but I'm here for it because it was really cool to see Sukuna fall into Megumi's shadow, and that's how we're told that Megumi is finally fighting back. He is choosing to live for himself. At least I hope he is. There's still a good chance he dies at the end of this, but my hope here is that he has realized for himself that he has stuff worth living for, like Yuji, and then he's basically deciding again to go and fight Sukuna and be a part in Sukuna's downfall, which is really great to see, and I hope we get to see more of it. But that's all we really get of Megumi stuff in this chapter. We still really don't know what direction that's taking. Sukuna then reveals that he can't heal his burnt out curse technique like Gojo did because it's way too risky at this point. The lasting impacts of Gojo's infinite void on Sukuna's brain are still hanging around, which means it just causes too much of a problem to keep on healing it over and over. We've gotten exactly 30 chapters past Gojo's death, and still somehow Gojo has the most impact in this entire fight. It's crazy. And yeah, I'm Gojo glazing. Shut the fuck up. I really don't care. Like, I like Gojo. I'm gonna talk about Gojo. I hate Sukuna. I'm gonna hate on Sukuna, you know? I want Megumi to come back. I'll say I want Megumi to come back. I think Yuta's #1 in JJK. That's what I'm gonna say, you know? Because, sorry, I kind of went on a Gojo glazing rampage, but whatever. So yeah, Sukuna heals his burnt out curse technique naturally, and it is back because he threw dismantles or slashes of some kind and broke Yuji's Claws of Calamity, which is his weird, like, gauntlet-looking things that we don't really know what they do, why they're there, how they got there in the first place. We know nothing about them, really. My theory is that they're a seal for what we're about to see, but I'm not sure. That's just a stab in the dark. It doesn't say that anywhere. It's just a theory of mine. His Claw of Calamity breaks, and it reveals, as Sukuna's doing his infinite void hand sign to expand his domain, he sees that Yuji has got 2 fingers missing from that hand. And then we see a shot of a weird spiral staircase where a Sukuna-looking finger is hung up over the staircase. I have absolutely no fucking clue what this means. I have no idea. But all I can really put together from this is that that isn't Sukuna's finger, it's Yuji's finger. Yuji having fingers missing surely indicates that it's Yuji's finger, right? And also we know that the last Sukuna finger is supposedly with Yuta Okotsu, or inside Rika. So again, how would that be the last finger? Unless Sukuna didn't take the one that was originally inside Yuji. So yeah, everything kind of points to it being Yuji's finger, and also it shouldn't really be the same as Sukuna's soul, so I don't know what Yuji intends to do with this finger. Like, why is it strung up in this suspicious place? Why can Sukuna sense its presence when he's going to open his domain? It really just, I have no idea. Maybe it is as simple as it is Sukuna's last finger, and there's a condition where if Sukuna expands his domain in Yuji's domain, then, you know, the finger just gets completely destroyed or some shit like that. Realistically, at this point, I don't feel like Sukuna would care. I feel like he'd happily sacrifice a finger to get this all over with. But I don't know. Like, I honestly, I have no ideas that are really that valid for this. It's just really strange. It's a weird chapter. The editor's note says that the climax of the fight is happening in chapter 267, which that can't be right. Like, Sukuna can't die next chapter. It would be so underwhelming. Not enough has happened. There's so much more to JJK's story that needs to be explored, including with Sukuna. Ending it in one chapter after having this chapter would just not, it wouldn't sit right with me. I don't know. But yeah, that was JJK chapter 266. I would very much appreciate if you let me know how this video went in terms of, you know, entertaining you, because that's why I make these videos. I basically did it with my face cam and unscripted, because making, like, getting up in the morning after staying up for leaks and writing out a script and then also recording it and editing it with, like, the clips and the panels and all of that just takes so long that by the time I get it out, everyone else has already posted their videos, and then there's, like, no point me really doing it. So I wanted to be able to get them out earlier by doing them like this. But be sure to let me know what you think. If you all hated it and this video sucks, I'll go back to doing it like I normally did, because there's no point me trying to do this if it's just not working. So yeah, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time, I guess. Well, leave. I'm done. Go.